Alright, before we get started, I want to make a quick correction to my No Such Luck video. Basically, I complain about the very lame excuse Luna made about getting stuck behind a lady with the beehive with actual bees in it. However, it turns out Luna wasn't talking about an actual honeycomb, rather, she was referring to the popular 80s hairstyle known as the beehive. I don't know how I didn't think of that, but it does make a lot more sense with that knowledge in mind, even though it's still a lame excuse. Special thanks to Fantastic Freddy and New Cool Boy, aka Cake, for pointing this out to me. Despite that, No Such Luck is still and always will be the worst episode of the entire series, as said millions of times before. With that little correction out of the way, let's get into the actual video. Has there ever been a time where you read the synopsis for an upcoming episode of a TV show, and you think it's gonna be really good, but when you actually do watch the episode, it's not only not as good as you were hoping it would be, but instead, it's actually way worse than you ever could have imagined? Well, my favorite animated series, The Loud House, is no stranger to this. And I can think of no better example to the scenario I just described than with the Season 6 episode, The Taunting Hour. I remember back when this episode was announced at the start of 2022, I was really excited for it. I thought it was going to be a relatable, down-to-earth episode that not only teaches a strong and important moral, but that it would also bring the characters closer together in a wholesome and endearing way. So did the episode accomplish all that? Well, it was down to earth, and while it did kind of teach an important moral, instead of bringing the characters closer together, it actually drifted them apart in the most unbelievable way possible that absolutely angered the fans. And unlike a majority of modern Loud House episodes where I feel some fans are being way too harsh, The Taunting Hour is the one exception where I don't blame anyone for calling it either a bad episode or one of the worst in the series. However, being the passionate Loud House fan that I am, I feel like I gotta ask, does this episode truly deserve all the hate? I know asking that out loud sounds really dumb, but just hear me out. You see, the thing about The Taunting Hour is that, for the most part, it seemed like it was going to be a tolerable or decent episode at worst, at least in my opinion. Everything seemed like it was going fine, but then, this one scandalous scene occurs right before the end of the episode, and it's because of this scene that this episode gets so much hate. Similar to how the fandom despises No Such Luck for the abuse of Lincoln, the fandom despises The Taunting Hour solely because of this one scene. It absolutely wrecked everything and is a contender for one of the worst and most mean-spirited moments in the series. But I've been wondering lately, would these episodes be much less badly received if those moments never occurred? Would No Such Luck still be considered the worst episode in the series if not for the treatment of Lincoln? It's something I can't help but think about whenever I look back on these terrible episodes. Back to The Taunting Hour though, would this episode be so much better had it not been for that one infamous scene? Or, even without it, would the episode still be very flawed in terms of writing and get poorly received by many fans? Well, that's what we're gonna find out today. In this video, I'm going to do a review on The Taunting Hour, analyzing how the episode is written, and if it deserves either more or less criticism. After my No Such Luck video, I've been wanting to make another deep analysis on a different Loud House episode for a while. Just like before, I'll be breaking the video into segments, going over the plot and making points along the way. My main goal for this video is to not only improve my writing and editing skills, but to also make sure the length of the video is shorter. Even months later, I am still in shock that my No Such Luck video is over an hour long when I was expecting it to be much shorter, especially since it's my first commentary video. Because of that, my main goal is to try and make sure all future commentary videos have a shorter length, but that's proving to be more difficult than it looks. Obviously though, I have no idea how long this video will be as I'm working on it, so I will keep my fingers crossed and hope it isn't once again longer than I expected. I would say more, but I think you guys can get the gist of it. With all that said, if you guys enjoy the video or are a fan of the Loud House, then please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to the channel. We've been increasing our subscriber count a lot recently, and I promise with your support, I'll work hard to greatly improve the quality of all future videos. That way, I can bring you guys several hours of YouTube content to enjoy. But now, it's time to become critics ourselves as we taunt the heck out of this episode and try to figure out what the writers were thinking. Let's get started. Before we get into the episode, I think first, we need to ask the important question of, what is the purpose of a critic? The meaning of this can be subjective for a lot of people, and it may depend on a few different variables, such as the person acting as a critic and what it is they're judging. After doing a bit of research, the best definition I can find for a critic is a professional or person who forms and expresses reasoned, detailed judgments about the quality of creative works, products, or performances. In my opinion, this perfectly describes what a critic is. It's their job to provide their honest point of view on just about anything, and that may come with its fair share of criticism. The person receiving this feedback from the critic can listen to what they have to say, and if they change up their act a bit, they might be able to improve on their talents even more. Of course, all this depends on the circumstances in the scenario that is going on at the moment, but going based on assumptions, I think this is the perfect example of what a critic is supposed to be. I felt it was important to address who critics are because I think it really ties in and affects the writing of the Taunting Hour. Speaking of which, let's actually quickly read the episode synopsis. The plot of this episode says, after Lincoln tries to help Lynn get over a heckler at her soccer game, the Louds realize they all have critics. Like I said in the intro, when I first read the synopsis, I was really excited for this episode, especially since it seemed like it was going to strengthen what is arguably the least healthy sibling bond in the Loud family. I mean, that's also subjective, but based on what I've seen, I don't think it's an unpopular opinion to say Lincoln and Lynn have the least chemistry with each other among the Loud family. Anyways, let's now jump into the first few scenes of the episode and see how this whole thing starts. The episode begins at a soccer game, where Lynn is kicking butt as always. Her family is in the crowd cheering her on, including Lincoln, who seems to have learned his lesson on being supportive and no such luck. We also get a quick glimpse of Chandler being annoying to Lincoln by covering his view with a cardboard cutout of his own face. It's random and arbitrary, but who cares, it's Chandler, he sucks. It seems to be going well at first, but then things change when Scoots, of all characters, pops up and starts making fun of Lynn in the crowd, saying she has emu legs. LJ tries to ignore her at first, but then Scoots' words start to get in her head, and LJ begins to not only imagine Scoots' face on the other soccer players, but also that she herself has emu legs. As a result, she completely freezes up. Because of this, Lynn unfortunately loses the soccer game. When the Louds get back home, LJ begins rage lifting, clearly showing how frustrated she is. Luckily, Lincoln, the man with a plan and super kind number one brother that he is, decides to help Lynn and thinks he has an idea that might fix her problem. Emphasis on the word might. Lincoln shows Lynn footage of one of Lola's ribbon dances, and a pageant judge who was unimpressed by it, saying it's a rehash. Lynn is at first unfazed, so Lincoln shows her how more members in their family deal with annoying haters. We then get a montage of Lincoln showing Lynn that Luna, Lynn Sr., Rita, Loanne, and Lisa have their own negative critics. After this, Lynn ends up feeling better in the next scene, but we'll continue with that in just a moment. First, I think we need to address the elephants in the room, each of the Louds' respective critics. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but in my opinion, it really bothers me how the characters constantly refer to these mean people as critics when they're really not acting like one. Yeah, they're giving their honest opinions, albeit very negatively, but that's all they're doing. They're not explaining what they don't like about the Louds' professions, or what they think they should do to fix it. They're just acting like a bunch of jerks for no reason, or as Lashana from Total Drama puts it,
just mean for the sake of being mean.
As I've addressed before, the purpose of a critic is to offer a reasoned and detailed judgment about someone else's creative work, and as I just said, none of the Louds critics are acting like that. It really feels like they're acting mean-spirited for the sole purpose of bringing those they are insulting down. Because of this, the main reason I can't stand the characters calling these haters critics is because it makes the episode betray that all critics are bad people who want nothing more than to bring people down for no reason other than their own amusement. It just feels like a really bad message, especially to those who criticize others for the sole purpose of wanting to improve them. What's annoying is that I feel like this problem could have been easily solved if the characters had just simply replaced the word critic with hater, since that's what they really are. The characters do go back and forth on calling them critics and haters, but they are referred to the former most of the time, which is very bothersome. I know it might seem far-fetched to complain about this episode for simply misusing a word, especially since there might be some people out there who find most critics to be like this, but again, I, and I'm sure many others, don't believe all critics are like this, and it just leaves a very sour taste on the episode. Speaking of those critics, which I'll actually start calling them haters since that's what they really are, they're another baffling issue this episode has. Not necessarily the fact they're just being mean, since the way they act is kind of the whole point of the episode's plot, but instead, some of the character choices for each Loud's respective hater don't really make much sense. Like, the haters for Lola, Rita, Luann, and Lisa make sense since they're nameless random characters we don't know anything about, and we don't even see Rita and Luann's haters in person. The same can be said for Lincoln's hater, Chandler, who's shown to treat Lincoln badly in the past. These character choices do make sense to be haters, but it's hard to say the same for Lynn, Luna, and Lynn Sr.'s haters. Starting with Lynn, her hater is Scoots, as we've addressed from the start of the episode, but she feels like an odd choice to me. Like, I know Scoots is a character who has a habit of being a bit rude toward others, but the way she was handled here rubs me the wrong way. Not only is she acting ruder than usual without any given reason, but this is also what creates the entire conflict. I really don't understand what Scoots has to gain from making fun of this one teenager. Did LJ do something to Scoots off screen and this is her method of getting back at her? I don't know, and they really should have just made Lynn's hater either a nameless random character, or bring back a forgotten character from the early seasons, like Hawk or Hank, the two bullies from the episodes The Loudest Yard and Tricked. The point is, it's baffling for Scoots of all characters to be Lynn's hater, and I have no idea what she has to gain by making fun of Lynn and saying she has emu legs. As a quick side note, fun fact, did you know that emus can run up to 31 miles per hour, meaning they can outrun humans? What Scoots is saying may be an insult, but it at least shows how fast LJ can run, which isn't surprising given the star athlete that she is. Another character choice that doesn't make sense is Luna's hater, the nameless burnt bean manager. This is because, although she is presumably allowing the Moon Goats to play at the coffee shop, she actually thinks their music sucks and would rather listen to her grandmother's flute band. If the manager thinks the Moon Goats suck, which they don't by the way, my band is an absolute banger, why is she letting them play at the Burnt Bean at all? Either the manager is forced by someone else to hire a band to play, or the Moon Goats bring more customers in. But if that's the case, then it makes the manager seem like a total hypocrite by saying their music sucks. Again, like with Scoots, the writers really should have made Luna's hater some nameless random character. Or, if I was the writer of this episode, I would get really creative and make Luna's hater either Doug or Michelle, the two music hosts from Really Loud Music who are inspired and voiced by the songwriters of the same names. Also, in case anyone is curious, no, despite the strong resemblance, the Burnt Bean manager is not related at all in any way to Sam, at least according to the comics from what I heard. The only other questionable hater choice is Mr. Grouse, who is for Lynn Sr., but I'll get back to him later in the video. Up until this point, I would say the episode is fine for the most part. The only issues are the questionable portrayal of what a critic is, and the odd hater choices, but otherwise, it looks like the episode won't be terrible. Unfortunately, it's when the dinner scene starts is when the episode begins to fall apart, so let's jump into the second half and see what else goes wrong. First off, this is only a nitpick, but for some reason, when Lynn points out how Lincoln was the one who helped her out with her problem, it really bothers me how the rest of the family give either confused or unhappy facial expressions. Like what, is it weird or unusual for Lincoln to do something nice for his family, and for everyone to not act happy about this? I don't know why this small detail bothers me so much, but it's not a big deal, so let's just move on. While eating dinner, Lynn reveals that everyone deals with a hater, including with her own family. Lola at first denies this, but then Lynn reveals to her that the pageant judge who dissed her ribbon dance, with Lincoln chiming in calling it uninspired. This causes Lola to feel very upset with a devastated look on her face. Okay, what I'm about to say next is really important down the line, so make sure you pay attention and remember. Next, LJ asks Lincoln to tell the rest of their family about each of their own haters. So, one by one, Lincoln tells Luna, Loanne, Lynn Sr., Rita, and Lisa about each of their haters, and Lynn claims that hearing how each of them have their own hater makes her feel better. Before we get into the next major problem, there are two small issues I want to quickly bring up. First, I find it weird how no one at the dinner table acknowledges the extremely sad faces the aforementioned Louds make after hearing about their haters. Like, Lincoln and Lynn act so casual and don't notice this, and the other sisters, Lenny, Lucy, Lana, and Lily, say absolutely nothing. Coincidentally, they don't have a personal hater nor say any lines for the entire episode. I just think it would have been more natural if one of the sisters, such as Lenny, said something like, guys, can't you tell you're like really upsetting them? Instead, it just comes off as kind of jarring. Speaking of which, man are those sad faces just upsetting to look at, and I mean that in more ways than one. Like, I understand how hurtful those words can be, but it seems a bit odd that the first thing the Louds do is immediately act sad about it. I feel the first thing the Louds would do would be confront their haters on what they're saying. If I overheard or was told by someone else about a person that was hating on whatever I was doing, I wouldn't act all sad right away. Instead, I would talk with the person and have them explain what it is they don't like about my performance, or try to find ways to improve my skills. The point I'm trying to make is that it feels extremely odd for the Louds to just instantly be that upset and make a mopey face about it. What's even with those sad faces? They look like they just watched their favorite character die in Stranger Things. Besides those small issues, this brings us to the Taunting Hour's next big problem: inconsistency and over-exaggeration. The Loud House has proven multiple times to not have the most consistent timeline, but it has shown to follow up major elements and plot points set in past episodes. The most notable that comes to mind for me would have to be the debut of Lynn's Table, which was introduced in the Season 3 finale Cooked. Since that episode, the restaurant has been a recurring setting for several Loud House episodes that came after. There's also how the Season 5 premiere Schooled marked the beginning of a new school year for the characters, thus implying Seasons 1 to 4 were set within 1 year. I could go on about the timeline of the Loud House, but the gist of it right now seems to be that the Taunting Hour takes place after Season 3, and is within the second year of the timeline. Plus, Lori isn't in this episode because she is at college. With that said, this brings up a very inconsistent question. That being, is this supposed to be the first time any of the Louds have dealt with a hater in their professions? Again, we've just addressed when the episode should take place, so at this point, the Louds have been doing their professions for a while. Yet somehow, they've never once been criticized by anyone, or rather, heard any criticism themselves. It's just difficult to believe this, given the timeline this episode takes place, and given how upset they got very quickly, it does seem to imply this is their first time dealing with a hater. You could make the argument that it is possible the Louds never noticed this, especially since the haters for Lola, Luna, and Lisa were keeping their annoying comments to themselves and not telling it to their faces, and they just never noticed their negative facial expressions. However, it's hard to believe the other Louds never noticed their haters. Like for Rita, we see that she has a bin full of letters to the editor, and some of them are red, implying those are negative comments. Does Rita just not read those letters and always implies her writing is top-notch without any flaws? And for Luann, when doing a comedy livestream, does she never see any negative comments in the chat? This is where we get into the issue of Mr. Grouse being Lynn Sr.'s hater. While it makes sense on the surface since he always acts like a grouchy neighbor, the fact Lynn Sr. is suddenly traumatized by this feels so strange. Not only should Lynn Sr. already know about Mr. Grouse's complaints, he shouldn't be hurt by them at all given that's how Mr. Grouse always acts. At least Kotaro didn't get upset over what Mr. Grouse said. What makes this more inconsistent is that there have been past episodes that have shown this type of scenario before, and the character that should be most familiar and capable of dealing with haters is Luann. In the Season 2 episode, No Laughing Matter, it made sense for Luann to act depressed because 1, she directly heard the hurtful things being said about her, and 2, it was her own family saying those things. It makes total sense for anyone to get upset over hearing their family say such hurtful things. And in the Season 3 episode, Head Poet's Anxiety, Luann showed Lucy how in order to succeed as an entertainer, you gotta learn to have a thick skin when dealing with a tough crowd. Despite these 2 episodes, Luann acts like the rest of her family as if this is her first time dealing with a hater, when it clearly shouldn't be. There's also the Season 5 episode, Much Ado About Noshing, where Mr. Grouse was among one of the 5 complainers. Lynn Sr. was upset at first, but later got fed up and angrily called out those characters, even though none of them were the mystery reviewer. With these past instances in mind, it makes the Taunting Hour a very inconsistent episode, at least when it takes place in the series. But if the Louds not knowing about their haters until now and their sad faces weren't enough, that's nothing compared to their extreme overreactions. Once again, I understand how hurtful it can be to have someone talk down on you in your profession. If I heard someone talk badly about me on, let's say, my racing skills in Mario Kart World, or I got a comment on one of my videos saying, "Your video sucks," I would start to feel a little bit hurt by that. But instead of instantly getting upset, I would either confront the person criticizing me and ask what it is they don't like, or try to improve my skills in any way I can. That's not what any of the Louds do, and it just comes off as an incredible overreaction. Not only do they instantly mope about it, but they also have trouble falling asleep that night. And when they're actually doing their professions, they either completely freeze up or freak out and almost have a panic attack. Listen, I do feel bad for the Louds, I really do, but given the fact they all should have been in this kind of scenario before, the way they all lose their minds just comes off as kind of jarring. It's even more ridiculous when you realize that it's only one singular person acting like a hater, and it's not even to their face. If it was a whole crowd of people publicly dissing them, then I would understand their freakouts a lot more. And I feel like I have to ask, were these scenes done to be funny? Because given context in the episode up until now, it just comes off as unfunny to watch, and I haven't seen a single person who finds this to be humorous. Although, I will admit, the scream Lynn Sr. makes when he encounters the real Mr. Krause is a bit funny at times. Still, I wouldn't be surprised if no one found these scenes to be funny. At this point in the episode, it's definitely not looking too good. The nitpicks and baffling issues are one thing, but the way this episode negatively portrays what a critic is, as well as how the Louds act to be contradictory given past episodes, really don't paint a good picture. But hey, we still have 2 more scenes left in the episode, so let's keep our chins up and hope things don't get any worse. Alright guys, this is it. It is now time to talk about the moment in the episode that occurs where literally everything falls apart. After this scene, it's all pretty much going to be downhill from here, and I am going to be expressing a lot of negative emotions. While I normally just play small clips in my videos, this time I'm just going to play the entire scene, because it really is that bad and truly deserves all the criticism and hate it gets for its complete and unnecessary mean-spiritedness. So if you're someone who can't bring yourself to watch any mean-spirited scenes of the Loud House because it triggers you in the worst way possible, or you just feel completely uncomfortable when watching it, feel free to skip to the timestamp below. Otherwise, it's time to revisit one of the worst moments in the entire series. Now, before we actually do play the scene and await the storm that is about to occur, let's take a pause and appreciate all the good and happy times where the entire Loud family treated each other with nothing but complete respect and pure kindness. Alright, let's do it.
Lincoln!
Oh, he is in for it!
There he is! Yeah! Why did you have to tell us about our haters, dude? Now we're all freezing up.
Look, I'm sorry I told you guys about your critics. I was just trying to help Lynn.
Stinkin'!
I hope that's a happy stinkin'.
Your dumb cure didn't cure me. Scoot heckled me some more, and now I've got emo legs again. It wasn't even at a game. It was at the mall food court.
Lynn, why are you paying attention to Scoots? Why are any of you paying attention to those people? It doesn't matter what they say.
It's easy for you to say. You don't have to deal with it. You just go around ruining lives.
What a life ruiner!
Ruiner.
What the f was that? Oh my god, what the hell were they thinking? Sorry about getting so mad. I know I just said I was gonna be negative, but damn, I went extreme overboard there. I guess it goes to show how frustrating these scenes in the Loud House can be, even for die-hard fans like myself. Enough of that though. Jesus Christ, there are so many big problems with this one scene, and I don't even know where to start. But we're gonna go through as much as I can, so let's-a go. First off, why are the Louds blaming Lincoln of all people? Yeah, he was the one who told them about their haters, but it's not like he did so to spite them or that he agrees with the haters. He was only doing it to help Lynn, which he admits. Lincoln had absolutely no intention to hurt his family, and I know he would never act like that in a million years. Speaking of Lynn, she was the one who asked Lincoln to reveal the haters, so she should be getting blamed too. But no, instead, she also gets mad at Lincoln, even though he said his idea might fix her problem, and completely throw him under the bus, all as those 7 knuckleheads get mad at only him. What makes this scene utterly ridiculous is that, of all the things the Louds could have done in this obstacle, this is what they choose to do. They don't seek help or talk to a loved one, nor do something to get their minds off it. Their first decision is to completely lash out at their brother/son, like that's gonna make things better. I just don't know who on the staff thought this was a good idea. There have been moments before and after this episode where Lincoln does deserve to get called out for his wrong actions, even if his punishment is taken to an extent, but this moment completely crosses the line. Lincoln did absolutely nothing to deserve this, and the Louds are just acting plain horrible. Speaking of whom, can we just talk about how the Louds are being extremely hypocritical in multiple ways? It just further adds to how terrible and also suddenly they act in this scene. First, it's incredibly jarring how when thinking about their haters, they act like a bunch of cowards and panic like it's the end of the world, yet they have no problem acting even worse to their own brother/son who does not deserve it at all. If the Louds really have to get angry at someone, then there's one obvious group of people that deserve it. They're haters! They're the ones saying those mean things, regardless of their intentions, so if the Louds are gonna get mad at anyone, it should be them. But no, it's instead Lincoln who gets all the blame for literally no reason. Why couldn't the Louds have acted more like Kane?
Oh, Zubul, you mismatched cash piano, I'll tear you to pieces! Constructive criticism would be greatly appreciated.
Just imagine being in the Loud scenario and thinking who to blame for this sudden act of freezing up. Do I blame the person saying those mean things? Or my family member who told me about the person saying those mean things? It's such an obvious answer, but the Louds couldn't have been any more wrong in their entire lives. Plus, Mr. Coconut says that Lincoln doesn't have to deal with the hater, but that's completely untrue. And I don't mean dealing with Chandler McJerkface, I mean the Louds are acting worse than their haters right now. The actions of the Louds' behavior is beyond me. It's insane how this scene is less than a minute, and that the staff made this number of awful writing decisions in such a short amount of time. However, you want to know what makes this scene even worse? It's that the Louds had the flipping nerve to deliberately call Lincoln a life ruiner. Why? Who in their right mind approved this and thought this was a good idea? I don't think there's been any past episodes where the Louds called Lincoln any mean insults. Actually, I take that back. That's literally what happens in No Such Luck all the time. I mean, if they were just talking about Lincoln's aura or something, it would probably be less insulting. But no, the fact they outright call him bad luck is just disgusting. And yet calling him a life ruiner is even worse! First off, their lives are barely ruined. Yeah, Lynn, Lola, and Lisa froze up in front of a huge audience, and I could see that experience haunting anyone, and God knows Luna could have gone into a car accident with how she shouted "stop" in Chung's van. But the others? Absolutely not. All Luann, Lynn Sr., and Rita did was freak out a bit for a couple of seconds. Nothing seriously bad happened to them, so they have no excuse at all to say Lincoln is a life ruiner. I mean, they all do, but you get the point. On top of that, the phrase life ruiner is even more insulting when you remember the Loud House movie exists. Remember during the grand climax where Lincoln, you know, saved their lives from a fire-breathing dragon? Had he not stepped in the way with that crown and drawn the dragon away, his family and Angus would have been more dead than getting hit with the blast burn move from Pokemon. And if you say the movie is non-canon, there's also No Time to Spy, which is canon, where Lincoln does the exact same thing, despite seemingly taking place after this awful scene. Plus, Lincoln's definitely done so many nice things for his family and to the people in his town, so to call him a life ruiner is just disgraceful. Honestly, this scene gets enough hate for the Louds getting mad and blaming Lincoln in the first place, but calling Lincoln a life ruiner just makes it so much worse. I genuinely want to know the person who thought it was a good idea for the Louds to call Lincoln a life ruiner. You know, I could believe Lola saying something that nasty given the kind of character she can be, but it is absolutely abysmal that the freaking parents say the same thing. I love Rita and Lynn Sr., but they can really be such parents, and sometimes I just want to feed them to the imprisoned. The only other thing I feel like I can ask is, what is the point of this scene? How is this out-of-nowhere moment of pure mean-spiritedness supposed to move along the story and teach viewers on what to do when dealing with a complete hater? The only explanation I can think of is that it gives Lincoln an idea to continue helping out his family, but there's no way the Louds acting so mean was the only way to do this. As a side note, I actually want to know what younger audiences, namely 5 to 10-year-olds, think about this scene, and maybe even see their reactions to it. Like, do they agree with the mature audience that it's awful, or do they have a completely different opinion on it? I don't know, but it's something to think about. Overall, I feel like I can keep discussing this one less than a minute scene even longer than I did, but I have to stop at one point. Not only is it plain abysmal and extremely mean-spirited, but it also feels completely out of nowhere. Like I said in the intro, I thought this episode was gonna strengthen Lincoln's bond with his family, but instead, it did the complete opposite, and it's not his fault at all. As much as the scenes in No Such Luck of Lincoln getting locked out of the house make me want to tear my hair out, at the very, very, very least, I could see how that scene works itself into the episode, and why someone out there would write it. I could barely see the vision. Still, No Such Luck is abysmal and never should have existed. But with this scene, I don't understand at all. What's the lesson this episode is trying to teach viewers with this unnecessary display of disgraceful outrage? It literally makes no sense at all. Once again, I don't blame anyone for calling this one of the worst episodes in the series because of this one scene. It really is that bad. Now, there's one more thing I personally want to bring up, and it might just be the dumbest thing related to this scene. According to the production code, which is also implied to be the order episodes of The Loud House take place, the Taunting Hour apparently takes place and was made right after Save Royal Woods. You know, the emotional half-hour special where Lincoln was called a hero? This means the show went from completely respecting Lincoln to treating him like he's a worthless piece of crap. How on earth do you go from creating one of the best and most wholesome episodes of the entire series that also could have served as a potential series finale to this shit? Again, it makes no ding darn sense. It's like these episodes were made by two completely different groups of people, because I have no idea how the following episode can be so bad so suddenly. I also feel like the Taunting Hour could be a lost season 1 episode. It would obviously still be hated, but considering the early era of the Loud House had a really bad habit of putting Lincoln through the ringer, it honestly would be kind of fitting, at least to me. Anyways, I think now is finally the time to shut the heck up about this scene and move on with the episode. We only have one more scene left, but I doubt it's gonna make things better, so let's just get it over with. So after that dumpster fire of a scene, Lincoln brings his family in the living room to show them something that will supposedly help them out. First off, you gotta give serious props to Lincoln for still being willing to help his family after being called a life ruiner. Not only is there nothing in it for him, but the fact he is able to maintain a positive attitude and not show any negative emotions or remorse takes serious guts. I don't think even Tilly or Kip would want to help out their families if they were in Lincoln's shoes. If this doesn't show what a good-hearted person Lincoln is, I don't know what does. Anyways, Lincoln shows his family footage of his own hater Chandler, who we already saw at the start of the episode, acting like a complete jerk and hating on Lincoln once again for no good reason. I don't know if Lincoln already had recorded footage of this before or during the episode, but the fact he was willing and able to record this definitely says something. Lynn points out what a jerk Chandler is, and Lincoln reveals that he doesn't bother him, and that's the whole point of all this. He then admits that Chandler did get to him at first, but eventually got better at ignoring him over time, and says why he should care what Chandler has to say because he's doing what he loves and that's all that matters. The Louds take Lincoln's words to heart and agree that they will learn to start ignoring their own haters from here on out. Right before the end, Mr. Grouse tries to tell Lynn Sr. something and the latter tries to ignore him, but I'll touch on that in just a moment. And that's how the Taunting Hour ends, plain and simple. It's not the worst ending to a Loud House episode, but it definitely feels very rushed and does not fix the major problem that occurs right before. So let's go over what the problems are here. As a quick side note, I want to talk about Chandler for a moment. One thing that's pointed out on the wiki page for the Taunting Hour is how the episode implies how unfamiliar that the Louds are with how much Chandler acts so mean to Lincoln, since Lynn's comment makes it sound like this is new to her. I kinda hate to say this, but as much as we all don't like Chandler, it's kind of Lincoln's fault for not doing anything about it. Whether it's telling his family or teachers, or just fighting back, Lincoln kind of just lets Chandler do what he wants without any consequences. I mean, no one seems to notice how Chandler treats Lincoln, so he might as well give him a taste of his own medicine, not like anyone's gonna care. Back to the main point though, the first problem with this ending is how quickly the Louds learn this new lesson. Rather than not understanding the point Lincoln is trying to make at first, they immediately take his words to heart without seeing if it actually makes things better. If we were given another montage, this time of the Louds doing their professions right without getting bothered by the comments of their haters, it would make things a lot better and more believable. Instead, it just falls flat like the family had to learn their lesson without putting it into practice. Speaking of the lesson, this is where the critics versus haters argument comes back into play. One thing that bothers me the most about the Taunting Hour wiki page is that there's a subcaption that says, "Never listen to your critics," which is just wrong on so many levels. We've already gone over how annoying it is when the characters refer to their haters as critics, despite that not being what it means, but the fact this episode's takeaway is essentially, all critics should be ignored, is a very poor message. As we saw in the episode, the Louds were completely freaking out over what their haters were saying. If they were panicking this much, then it's clear that what their haters are saying are having a major effect on them, therefore shouldn't be ignored. If I were one of the Louds, I would have confronted the hater that's criticizing and asked why they're saying those things. Their response can be many things and may not fix the problem, but it's at least doing something and not letting the haters get away with it. Or the Louds could have sought help from someone they trust. It's a lot better than lashing out on the one person who didn't deserve it. Just saying. Going back to what I said earlier, it bothers me how the episode portrays all critics as mean people who only exist to make others suffer with hurtful words. Not all critics are like that. There are some who may act like this for a personal reason, even though it's not an excuse, and there are plenty of critics who offer valid criticism because they want to improve other people's talents. This episode tosses all of that out the window for a moral that is wrong and doesn't make any sense. But the final stinger that makes this ending annoying to watch is, of course, the fact none of the Louds say sorry and give Lincoln an apology. It's literally the simplest thing the writers could have thrown in, but like most episodes where Lincoln is treated badly, he is never given the apology he deserves. Even just a very quick throwaway line would have been good enough. Like, just have Luna say, "Oh, by the way, sorry we lashed out at you earlier," and that would have been fine. But no, as always, the staff never bothers giving Lincoln any kind of apology. Whatever. This is just not a good ending to the episode. Even if they completely skipped the scene before, which is what I think actually should have happened, that doesn't fix all of the problems this episode has, and that is a ding darn shame. However, there actually is one thing about this episode's ending I do like. Remember how Lynn Sr. was going to block out Mr. Grouse's words, thinking he was going to criticize him again? Well, it turns out Mr. Grouse was trying to tell Lynn Sr. that he forgot to put the parking brake on his van again. This causes Vanzilla to roll backwards and Lynn Sr. to chase it. I guess maybe the episode realizes you should listen to critics after all. But besides the family not apologizing, I think this was the best way to end this episode with only seconds remaining. Remember, Lynn Loud Sr., a man who is supposed to be a kind and loving father, outright called his own son a life ruiner with absolutely no reason to do so, and once again, he nor his family say they're sorry. As a result, seeing this unexpected, albeit contrived, event occur feels somewhat like a proper punishment. And in my opinion, after a member of the Loud family treats Lincoln like crap, there is nothing more satisfying than watching that character get their comeuppance. Still, the entire family apologizing would have been much better, but this is still fun to watch, and I'll take what I can get. So that was the Taunting Hour. Still a very broken episode 4 years later. And to answer one of the questions I asked all the way back in the intro, would the episode have been much better if not for that infamous scene? Heck yeah, man. You all heard how frustrated I got the moment that scene played. If that one clip never existed, there would be no need to get so angry and the episode would be a lot less hated. They honestly should have cut the clip and have the scenes before and after flow into another. I don't think many people would complain or even notice it. But with that said, even without that terrible scene, do I think the episode is still poorly written when it comes to everything else? Well, that's totally subjective of me to ask, and it all depends on how each person views the episode, but it's definitely more bad than good. Not only does the Taunting Hour mischaracterize the Louds based on specific moments from past episodes, but like I said multiple times throughout, I feel like this episode does a very bad job at portraying who critics are. And I still think this problem could have been easily avoided had the characters never said the word critic and replaced it with hater instead. It is true that there are people in the real world who act just like the Louds haters, where all they do is act like a heckling troll for no good reason. But because the Louds keep saying the word critic, and those trolls keep acting so negatively, it just paints a bad picture for who critics really are. Some critics do have a genuine reason for having a negative opinion, without needing to act so mean about it, and other critics usually give criticism because they want to improve others. The Taunting Hour tosses all of this out the window, paints critics as bad people, and the only solution is to ignore them. But sometimes certain people can't be ignored forever, and if someone is treating you badly in more ways than one, ignoring them isn't going to fix anything. This episode does a very poor job with its morals, and I do think I have to say it is a bad episode, especially with that scene thrown in the mix. In my Season 6 ranking video from 2 years ago, I gave the Taunting Hour a rating of 4.1 out of 10, meaning if it was just 0.1 point lower, I would have said it was bad, since anything I rate a 4 out of 10 or below I consider to be bad quality. However, given all the negative stuff I said in this video, I think I have to admit this episode is truly bad and not barely tolerable. And that really sucks to me because, in my opinion, I don't think there has been a single bad episode of The Loud House since Season 5 began back in 2020. But again, due to everything I said, I can't deny that The Taunting Hour is indeed a bad episode. The same probably applies to other modern Loud House episodes, and I think I've been a little too nice. I don't know what other episodes I will consider to be bad, but when I do, I just know it is not going to be pretty. Also, like I said before, I really think this episode would fit right in with the early seasons of The Loud House due to the harsh treatment of Lincoln. I think I'm gonna start a theory where The Taunting Hour is a lost Season 1 episode, and the staff decided to bring it to life without changing or removing that awful scene. There actually is one more thing I want to touch on regarding that infamous scene, and it's actually something rather positive. That being, one thing I will credit this atrocious scene for is that unlike past Lincoln torture moments, keep in mind I'm being metaphorical when I say torture, it's not Lincoln's entire family involved. I think that's one of the reasons I used to be less harsh on this episode. And I'll just say that if all 10 of the Loud sisters, plus the parents, were involved in this conflict, then The Taunting Hour would be an easy top 10 worst episode of the series, no contest. However, I'm glad 5 of the Loud sisters aren't involved, and in my opinion, I think they weren't chosen because they are the most good-hearted of the 10 of them. Lori, who's away at college, has really matured over the series and would handle her hater professionally. Lenny is an angel and would never say something so cruel. Lucy probably remembered what Luann taught her, and if she didn't, would still never act so offensive. Lana is much nicer than her twin Lola, no argument there. And Lily, it's Lily. Once again, she would never act like this in a million years, and the staff knows what a sweet girl she really is. But yeah, for the other 5 Loud sisters, it's not much of a surprise they would act like this. LJ needs no explanation, just look at the worst episode in the series. The same goes for Lola, no argument here. Lisa doesn't understand human emotions that much and was written very unsmart in this episode. Luann can be just as mean as she is annoying with her unfunny jokes. And Luna... Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I love Luna, but I do think she is more likely than half her sisters to act so mean-spirited. I know that sounds whack, but that's just how I feel. And the parents, again, them, and they can get stabbed by Gearhim for all I care. Man, I am doubling down on the Skyward Sword references in this video. Finally, like I said in the intro, I genuinely thought this episode was going to be very good since the synopsis said Lincoln was going to help his family out. Instead, the complete opposite happened and I couldn't be more disappointed. So to end this rant of a video, I'll finish by saying this. The Taunting Hour is an episode that had serious potential, but due to its poor portrayal of critics, consistency issues, and most of all, that gosh darn scene that can fill anyone with anger, it completely missed the mark and deserves to be considered a very infamous episode of The Loud House. So that was the video. In terms of length, while I'm happy to have made it under an hour, the fact that once again it's a lot longer than I expected, thus taking a while for me to finish the video, does concern me a lot. I know I've said it multiple times before, but I definitely have to find ways to make future videos much shorter, preferably under half an hour. As for editing, I did put in more effort than usual, and I think it turned out pretty well. It sucks that Clipchamp wasn't cooperating with me, namely during the second half of the video, but I will definitely find a new editing software to use and make new videos, all while improving my skills. Anyways, I'm just gonna wrap up this outro as quickly as possible, so this video doesn't need to be any longer. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, especially if you sat through the whole thing. Please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to the channel, as I promise with your support, I'll continue making all kinds of videos with even better quality and editing. Now if you guys shall excuse me, I still have other video plans I aim to get done by the end of the year, but if I feel the need to delay them until next year, then that's exactly what I'll do, so I don't need to worry about rushing them or making any personal deadlines. After this video, I have a good feeling about what's to come next, and I really want to stay motivated and happy until then. So once again everybody, thank you so much for watching, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which I think will be a surprise. Bye!